Hello and welcome to 7 News. My name is Maeve Shaw and today we'll be interviewing the one and the only King Louis XVI. King Louis is currently visiting St Andrew's Anglican College on the Sunshine Coast and we'll be asking him a few quick questions about his role in the Revolution. So, Louis, tell us a bit about yourself. Well, I was born on August the 23rd, 1754 in the Palace of Versailles, which is where I've always lived. It's a beautiful big building that holds most of my memories. I have 4 children. 3 both died at very young ages, of 1, 7 and 10. This was very sad for me and my wife Mary Antoinette because it took her nearly 8 years to fall pregnant. Knowing that my children could have lived happy long lives makes me feel sad and depressed. I became king after my father and grandfather passed away on May the 10th, 1774. I was definitely not prepared to become king. I was only 20 years old and still pretty immature. Tell us a bit about your family. I was brought up with 8 siblings, 4 brothers and 4 sisters. My grandfather was a very hard man who thought of all my siblings above me. He believed I was ungainly and dim-witted. My parents didn't pay any attention to me, which made me feel like I was a disappointment, living in the shadow of my older, more attractive brother, who was lined up for the throne. But since he died quite young, of course, I was next. No one had high expectations of me, but I don't blame them. I was a shy, immature kid who had no self-confidence. No one had any thoughts of me being the king, especially the King of France in the future. What kinds of things are you interested in? Well, I am interested in academics. Every day I got tutored by French noblemen when I was younger. I loved learning, filling my brain with heaps of knowledge, especially Latin, history, geography and astronomy. Also, I studied English, morality, humanities, and eventually I became fluent in Italian. In my spare time, I enjoyed sports, such as wrestling and hunting, and I also learned locksmithing, which I continued to practice from an early age. Because I am such a quiet and shy person, I either do these activities to escape from the palace or to have some alone time, which I enjoy a lot. Now, you married a very young woman at a very young age. How do you feel about that? Well, I was only 15 when I married Marie Antoinette. We were barely into our teenagers, way too young to marry. Marie was the daughter of the Emperor and Empress of Austria, so she had a very social upbringing surrounded by friends and family because of how loved she was. With this upbringing, Marie was involved with musical events and loved the arts. Since I was such a shy teenager, getting to know Marie Antoinette was a long and very slow process. How was the wedding? Was it enjoyable? I had a specific order in how I had to act and react on the day of the official wedding ceremony, which made the experience very nerve-wracking, and having 2,000 people watch you didn't help at all. At the end of the ceremony, there was a fireworks show that was watched by 200,000 people. And of course, having this many people in a small space, hundreds got trampled. This made it quite distressing for me and my wife Marie. Overall though, the wedding was beautiful, but I definitely didn't feel any connection between Marie and I guess governments were more interested in building alliances with other countries than whether or not 2 teenagers loved each other. Why did you decide to help out America? After England's win in the Indian and French War in 1763, I was hungry for revenge. I demanded for a bigger, better, stronger army, which was expensive, but I think it was worth it. So once I heard about the Americans going against the English in war, I knew this was a perfect time for payback. So I generously sent around 12,000 soldiers and 32,000 sailors to the Americans. I was glad when they won, sending them even more financial support to congratulate them, their efforts and their win. What was your reaction to the revolution? The revolution started at a depressing stage in my life, when my ill son, Louis Joseph, died on June the 4th, 1789, at only 7 years old. This was very distracting, so I made no attempt to lay out a plan that might have attracted any support for the revolution. I continued to do my own things I enjoyed, such as hunting and doing masonry. My slack role as king became evident, and since I lacked political insight, I was unaware of what to do. I privately continued to think to myself that the revolution would just burn out. To the public, I appeared prepared to accept any new roles and gestures, such as my visit to Paris after the storming of Bastille. Tell us about your attempt to escape. I was failing at king. continuously making mistakes and refusing to follow advice or given plans for France. So I planned my escape because I felt that I was a disappointment. My family succeeded to get to the border, but sadly after that we were caught and brought back to Paris, where I lost credibility as a constitutional monarch. In November, proof of my secret dealings with Mirabeau and his opposers of the revolution was found in my secret cupboard in the Tuileries. I felt ashamed and guilty that I had kept this secret from everyone, including my family. On December 3rd, it was decided that my family and I, who had been in prison since August, should be brought to trial for treason. Did you have any plans for France during the revolution? I did have plans for France. I had ambition. I wanted to see France recover her place of greatness in the world. And had few things gone differently, there is no reason to believe that France could not have done so. I wish that I could have been the bigger man and stood up for my country, especially being the King of France. I feel as if I have disappointed my citizens and most importantly my family. How and why were you killed? Because of the bankruptcy I selfishly caused, prices of food began to soar and most crops failed as well. This made most citizens shun on me as king, which led to the National Convention for voting for me to be sentenced to death. I was then guillotined in Paris on the 21st of January 1793. I spent my last evening saying goodbye to my beautiful family and wife. The morning of my guillotine was slow and sad. I was sent on a carriage to France, which took 2 hours, and by 8 a.m. I was headless. Thank you, Louis, for those answers. Hope you enjoyed that interview, everyone. Good night, and see you next time.